There's a rather fascinating drama that occurs in the courtrooms of our nation with each passing day as litigants go to trial and bring their cases before the judge. They have trial attorneys who represent them, some for the defense, others for the prosecution. And they present their cases before the jury. They marshal evidence in support or in defense against the charge. That evidence is examined, cross-examined. Witnesses are evaluated in terms of their credibility, their knowledge of the facts, the consistency of their accounts. Subsequently, after all the evidence has been brought before the court, the attorneys then make their concluding arguments. They each will address the judge and the jury, representing their side, and make their case, compelling as it can be, for either the guilt or the innocence of the one who is charged. It's rather fascinating to watch this drama unfold. We see it on television programs, movies, and perhaps from time to time we have to go into court ourselves, hopefully serving on the jury. There's a continual contest, not only with regard to the guilt and innocence of specific individuals in terms of crimes that they may have committed, but there's further the contest that occurs every day of ideas. The contest that challenges our understanding of the world and who we are, what our place is in the world. Is there a God? And which God is there that is true and right? Who should we believe? The nations of the earth have all committed themselves in one direction or another, to one God or the other, based on tradition, history, religious insight, what have you. Who is telling the truth? Is there such a thing as truth? Why do we believe in the God of the Bible, the Trinitarian God of Christian faith? Well, in the prophet Isaiah, he calls the people of Israel to a contest, a challenge of ideas, to a courtroom drama. And he wishes to present the facts, the evidence, for the truth of the God of the Bible, the God of Revelation, the God of Moses, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or the gods that have made their way into the land of Israel, the gods whom the people were worshiping on the various high places, or tempted to go into nearby countries to worship gods in these different communities. Who was the true God? Who really could answer and defend his people? Who was the one who had control over history and time? And who was just a phony, a fake? God here in Isaiah's 41st chapter calls upon those who worship idols to come and to present their case before him. Bring their idols into the courtroom and show to us their merit, their worth, their credibility. What is it that they have accomplished for you? What can they do in the future? If they are gods, what credentials do they present? Are they able, in fact, to tell the future? To let us know what events are about to unfold? Can they really warn us of judgments to come? Can they threaten us in such a way that we should be afraid of what they have to say? Can they really bring blessing into our life such that by serving them we will be benefited? What is the evidence for the truth of these idols? When we in the modern world listen to Isaiah bringing this case against the idols of that ancient world, we might think that, well, that is of a time past, And humanity has matured over time. It has moved from the polytheistic past to a more monotheistic present. And indeed, that monotheism continues to evolve in our understanding, our perception. And we no longer have a sense of a God out there, but rather the God is now in us and all about us. And so the sense that we need to present idols into a courtroom trial does not seem to be pertinent today, does it? Or does it? You remember the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 1 talked about how the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all the unrighteousness and wickedness of men, who, even though God has revealed Himself to them, they reject that knowledge of God, they suppress it, they do not give thanks to God or worship Him aright, but rather they worship all kinds of things, four-footed creatures, even man. In many ways, in our modern culture, we do have idols. Idols of the mind, idols of the heart, idols of self, idols of humanity. We rest in ourself. We trust in ourself. We have to have evidence that satisfies us before we are willing to act. So man becomes the final measure of all things. Really, the heart of the matter is no different from the ancient times. Isaiah makes the point repeatedly that it was the people themselves that created these idols. They were the ones that chopped down the wood, fashioned it, put gold and silver on it, and nailed it to a trunk and worshipped it. They made their own gods in their own image. And so it was really a form of self-worship. Look at what I have created to worship for myself. Now, Isaiah calls on us to examine idols, to see their merit, their worth. Can they really accomplish that which they intend? Can they reveal truth to us? Can they tell us how we ought to live in the world today? Modern man finds that answer in humanity. Humanity, in its own wisdom, can determine a certain measure of truth through its use of reason, philosophy, science, literature, arts, what have you, or through various psychologies, determine what is the best way in which we can behave, through law, through casuistry. We can determine how we should live. And so humanity sets the parameters for what we are to think and how we are to behave. Well, let's bring that into the dock, shall we? Let's bring it into God's courtroom and see whether it has a leg to stand on. Whether it in fact can produce truth and morals. Isaiah challenges the idols of his day to present themselves, present their case. When you look at the various prophecies that have come about in the course of the idols, whether it be the Babylonian Marduk, or some of the other gods, the gods of the Greeks, the gods, the oracles foretold, their prophecies would typically either be in the most vague of language, that it could be interpreted in a wide variety of ways, much like you might find if you go to have your palm read, or if you were to go to have your fortune told today, and somebody tells you some very vague general things like, today is going to be your day, trust in the number 6, it's going to be a good number for you today. What does that say? Nothing. And so much of the prophecies of the gods in the past were like these kinds of things that could be interpreted in a variety of different ways. And generally, when you could decide on the meaning, it did come true.